gavel us to order out there.
We're live.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'll call the meeting in order for the Upson County Board of Commissioners for Tuesday, August 23rd. If you would at this time, please rise for an invocation followed by our pledge. If you bow your heads. Heavenly Father, we come to you today and ask for your blessings on this this community, this body, and for everyone that has joined here with us tonight. May the decisions that we make be in the best interest of this community and each citizen and be pleasing in your eyes. We ask these things in your name. Amen.
Amen.
If you join me in pledge. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right. Okay, just test one more time. Commissioner Watson's joined us via the internet highway. Commissioner Watson, can you hear us?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay, good.
Just have to speak up and speak one at a time.
Okay, first on the agenda is a public hearing for the 2022 millage rate. Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
So much.
A motion made and seconded by. You made it? He seconded it? Okay. All in favor, just, okay, it's unanimous. So the public hearing is open for the 2022 millage rate. I have two signed up to talk to us tonight. So again, if you would, when I call your name, if you'd come up, if you don't mind, you can come over to this corner or this corner so we can get you on our broadcast and speak loudly so that everybody can hear, and state your name and address for the record. So, Ms. Garcia?
Yes.
Hey, you want to talk to us about the millage rate?
Oh no, did I thought I signed the right thing.
Were you
I am.
wanting to sign up and talk to us about something else?
No, I was just here to observe, but,
Well, that's
I
fine.
am against it as far as because,
Okay.
but I don't have anything prepared, is that? All right.
Well, let me just explain to you. So you did sign up. So you have the opportunity to come up here and speak to us. You get 5 minutes. There's no back and forth discussion. You just get to explain to us your concerns. And so if you'd like to do that, you can do that, or I'll move on.
Can you move on? And if I want to speak, can I do that later?
This is
No, where?
if you just stand right here, state your name and address for the record.
Okay, my name is Candy Garcia, and I live at 5 Glen Cliff Road, Thomaston, Georgia. I am concerned about it going up. I am concerned about that because it's like important. And also, as far as the rest of the city too, I'm also concerned about my fellow citizens. Some of them are poor and can't afford the raise. I have been fortunate and blessed. God has blessed me to where I've been able to afford it so far. So I hope it doesn't go up too high. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, Ms. Fisher?
Well, there was a bit of misunderstanding.
Ma'am,
I
so
thought
if
I was
you-
just signing in,
Oh, okay,
but I will speak.
sure. So if you just state your name and address for the record, please.
Marcia Fisher, 3929 Ellerby Town Road. Yes, I went to the Board of Education last week and I spoke there also. And my impression was it didn't do any good because they had pretty much made up their mind beforehand. And I came here because I thought this was a hearing and I thought there was going to be some dialogue? Will there be dialogue later, questions, anything like
There'll-
that?
There'll be some discussion amongst the board members and.
We can't ask questions and get answers back?
No, ma'am.
Well, that was another misunderstanding, because that's why I came, because I wanted to hear you gentlemen explain to us why it was so necessary, because during this time of inflation, it just seems crazy, just crazy to be raising the taxes at this point. And, I mean, we're designated a poor county, and there's a lot of people that it's going to be really difficult, especially the elderly. Now, I understand this homestead vote is coming up, and I would like an explanation of that, because what I saw in the paper, there were so many choices, and I didn't understand it, so thank you.
Okay, well, maybe we'll answer some of your questions as you hear some of the exchange up here. If not, feel free to grab one of us after the meeting, and we'll go from there. So that is it for folks for signing up for the public hearing. So is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? It's unanimous. Okay. All right, moving along. Next thing on the agenda is public comments. We have no one signed up for general public comments tonight, so we'll move along. Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Gentlemen, on tonight's consent agenda, you have the approval of the August 2nd work session meeting minutes, approval of the August 2nd joint meeting minutes, approval of the August 9th regular meeting minutes, approval of the vehicle surplus list, and approval of the purchase of vehicles for the road department. If you'll remember, we discussed that at our work session. So with that, gentlemen, is there a motion on tonight's consent?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the consent. Jason, call for a vote.
Commissioner Watson,
Yes.
Commissioner Ellington,
Yes.
Commissioner Wilder,
Yes.
Commissioner Jones,
Yes.
Chairman Allen.
Yes. Okay, new business. Presentation and acceptance of the fiscal year 2021 annual financial report. And we have our wonderful auditors here tonight to make this presentation for the board and for the community. So you get to hear this.
So each of you should have a bound copy, a little bound, spiral bound copy of what is up here. But we put this up here so everyone can see. And we're just going to go through some financial highlights. But before we do that, we're going to briefly go through some areas of the audit just so you and the public understand what it is we do. Well, first of all, I'm Rashan Adams. That is Sydney Sharp. And we are the two partners in our firm of Driver Adams and Sharp. And thank you very much for allowing us the opportunity to continue to work with you. The first page is the scope of our audit, and what we covered is we covered the December 31st, 21 financial statements. We did an assessment of your internal controls, and then of course we're available for year-round consultation. Alan, we do communicate during the year. The next page is our audit results, and we issued an unmodified opinion, which is that everything is wonderful. There are no material misstatements within your financial statement. We issued an unmodified opinion on your internal controls of your financial reporting, which means that there were no material weaknesses or deficiencies that we saw in your internal controls. The next line is that we did not find any material weaknesses. We did not discover or were not made aware of any instances of fraud, and that we did receive full cooperation from your management. The next page is just the key phases of our audit. A lot of people don't really know what it is that we come in here and do. They think we just prepare financial statements, and that's not what we do. Our first stage is planning, and that's where we understand what it is that you've hired us to do. We get an understanding of your organization, and while we do know your organization, this year we did a very deep dive into your internal control. We interviewed several of your employees, so we did a little bit deeper understanding of that, and we used that to identify your risk. Where do we see risk that material misstatement could happen? And then we considered the issues or any comments we had from a prior year, and we used that to develop our audit approach. What are we gonna do? We know what the potential risks are, what are we gonna do? So the next thing is we assessed your control environment using those interviews and other areas that we had studied. We understood what your controls were. So we know what your controls are, but then we tested those controls to make sure they worked. We did perform a single audit testing, which is based on your federal funds. You were not required to have a single audit this year. And then we identified any audit issues. And then we went into our final stage of our field work, which is we did some more testing of controls if we felt like we needed to. That's where we do our substantive testing, where we pull actual invoices and revenue documentation. And we were sure we went through all of our governmental requirements, and then we concluded the audit. And so now we're in our final stage, which is we've drafted a report, which you have. It's just a draft, it's not the final report. We've had an exit meeting, and we're here presenting to you. So that's where we are, is in that final stage. We have certain responsibilities that we're supposed to communicate to you. The first one is that these financial statements are the responsibility of your management. Our responsibility is to say that they are free from material misstatement, which they are, and we have stated that in our opinion. And then we make a judgment on your accounting policies that you're using, and we are able to say if we agree with those or we don't, but we do agree with those. Alan, you got that there, thank you. And down just a little more, okay. Another one is if we had to make any audit adjustments, and you're not required to make those audit adjustments, but your management did, and they have to consent to all of the audit adjustments that we made. And so that has been done, and we're required to communicate that to you as well. Any fraud or illegal acts, and we did not find any fraud or illegal acts. If there are any material weaknesses in your internal control, and we did not find any material weaknesses. And any other information that we needed to disclose to you, and there was not any. And then the last was just, did we have any disagreements with management? And we did not. Did we have any difficulties when performing the audit? And we did not. And were there any major issues that we had before we decided to accept this engagement? And there were none. And we have received a management representation letter from you. Of course, it's from Alan and Jason. They're required to sign it, and they have signed it and returned it to us. So we have completed all of those required communications. Sydney Sharp is the lead auditor on this, support for this audit for her. So she's going to come in and finish up with our presentation and talk to you a little bit about fraud and hit some financial highlights. And as always, if you have any questions after you review all this, please call us. We're glad to sit down with you individually and answer any questions.
Okay, so we have some responsibilities related to fraud, or we'd lose our license if we did not do a dive into it. We're not required to test every transaction, but we are required to test enough transactions so that we feel comfortable giving an opinion on whether or not they're free of material misstatement, including fraud or error. The part about fraud is, well, we approach all audits with an understanding that fraud could occur in any entity. And so while we know all these guys and we like them, we still have to kind of approach it from a outsider's perspective as if it is occurring. And so we do test a significant amount of transactions to make sure that they're written, transactions are written to the proper people, the invoices exist, things like that. Some of the procedures we perform include, where internal controls are concerned, understanding the tone and the culture of the organization to make sure that they're acting in a way that makes staff want to act in a way that's with integrity. So we look for unusual or unexpected transactions, relationships, and procedures. We evaluate key processes and controls, and we consider information gathered throughout the audit. So then at the end of the audit, we have all this paperwork, and we go through it, and we just look at it from a comprehensive standpoint and say, okay, well, if there is an adjustment here or there for a small amount, or whatever the case is, we look at it and think, are we comfortable risking our licenses to put it out there that, that everything is free of material misstatement? So the financial report, which, they'll get, we have not produced a, final hard copy yet, but it's available in PDF. That includes the government-wide financial statements, fund financials, and notes to the financial statements. Also included, if anybody were interested, is an MD&A, which is really kind of a summary of the entire audit report, and it's very useful in summarizing the financial statements. Let's see. There are 9 major funds, 4 non-major, and capital projects funds. Moving to page 11. So I'm just going to touch briefly on the actual numbers. So that table shows you what the net position was for 2021 and for 2020. And then it shows for governmental activities and for business type activities. Governmental activities are all your different funds, your SPLOST funds, your, SPLOST funds are capital projects, and then your 911 funds, things like that. The business type activities really is just your water department and your sewer and waste. So the net position for governmental activities at the end of 2021 is $48,504,000. The business type activities, $5,358,502, and the total is $53,862,000. That includes all the assets. So you've got like all kinds of infrastructure, things like that included in that. That's not their cash balances that they can just operate on. So then moving to the next page is where you can find what your revenues and expenses were. Total revenues for 2021 were about $30 million. Total expenses about $29 million. So that really kind of tells you how you get from one year to the next. And then moving to the next page. So that touches on net position. So net position includes all of your assets, like I said, but fund balance does not include all of those assets. So on this page, it tells you how their fund balances are classified and how they can use those. So in this case, the non-spendable inventory is $18,319, and then you've got your committed for, and they've got funds that are committed for technology improvements, capital outlay, waste and water improvements, and that is, committed is when your governing body votes to allocate those funds for those purposes. Then you go down, you've got your restricted for. Restricted is a restriction that's placed on them by somebody from the outside. So it could be your SPLOST funds, it could be, it mostly includes your special revenue funds, but in this case they are for public safety, culture and recreation, your joint projects and unincorporated area, capital outlay and debt services. The total fund balance is $20,731,000, but of that, the amount unassigned is $11,841,000. This is just kind of telling you, and I guess, in a pie chart, to how your revenues are accounting for the makeup of all of the revenues. And so property taxes make up 30%. Sales tax makes up 39%, and then you've got charges for services, other revenues, intergovernmental, fines and forfeitures, licenses and permits, and other taxes, which make up the rest, but all are, five or less for the most part. Then on your expenses, Again, it's just breaking it down. You've got public safety makes up 23% of the expenses. Let's see, capital outlay makes up 31%. If you look in the audit report, capital outlay is further broken down into whether or not it's public safety, things like that. But capital outlay is basically your asset purchases, your infrastructure, things like that. If you move to, so this is just the general fund, and it goes over the last 10 years of your fund balances within the general fund, and shows that the government is operating effectively. They are maintaining funds in order to continue to service their areas. And then if you move to the next page. So the county's investment in capital assets for its governmental activities amounts to $31,896,000 for the year. And then the debt is, let's see, the total long-term liabilities for the county are $6.8 million for 2021. And that pretty much sums up the numbers. Thank you.
Thank you. Jason, you have anything you'd like to add?
No, well, just that it's interesting, and it's the first time we've shown that graphically, is that when you include capital outlay with all the other components, it shows just what the board has allocated a lot of those sales tax resources towards is infrastructure, and obviously the main thing, we're doing a lot of those road resurfacing, so that's really what is driving that percentage. Is also telling that between capital outlay and public safety, the rest seems to be pretty minuscule.
Mr. Salter, you got anything you'd like to?
Just that we're within days of finalizing this. The numbers are set. There are some little minor, as we say in the industry, nits and gnats. We need to correct on the document. Once that's done, it'll be made available on our county website under the finance department. And we'll let everybody know through our social media when it's put out there, so anybody can go and get the full annual financial report and download it or view it online.
We could also put the link to the website that we all upload these things to, if
Sure,
anybody was
yeah.
interested to go with the prior years.
Yeah, correct.
And anybody want to do some homework?
We already have that, thanks to Ms. Jessica. She put it in a new link for us last week for our prior year documents.
Gentlemen, you have anything? Mr. Watson?
No questions. One comment, I do appreciate the presentation tonight, kind of explaining what, or at least explaining to the public what the firm does. I thought that was very helpful to kind of go into a little bit more detail, just for our constituents to understand.
Okay. And I just want to thank y'all. I mean, you know, this process continues to evolve year after year, and I like to think that all of us are, y'all are making us all smarter. We're making us better, and staff goes a long way with that too. So, you know, we appreciate the comments, and hopefully next year will be even better than we were this year. So, do we vote to accept the audit? So, you have a recommendation for staff to accept the 2021 annual financial report. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion made and seconded to accept the 2021 financial report. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, Jason will call for the vote.
Commissioner Watson,
Yes.
Commissioner Ellington,
Yes.
Commissioner Wilder,
Yes.
Commissioner Jones.
Yes.
Chairman Allen.
Yes. Okay, thank y'all. We're moving right along. Next on the agenda is the approval of Resolution 24.2022, authorizing the 2022 tax levy. Jason, how would you like to
I think, Mr. Chairman, I think at this point, it's a short resolution. If the board would entertain it, I can read it and we can go from there.
I appreciate that.
All right. You took the last one, which was pretty hefty, so. Whereas pursuant to the authority set out in Article 9, Section 4, Paragraph 1 of the Constitution of the State of Georgia and the Official Code of Georgia, Section 48-5-400, Upson County is authorized to levy taxes for the operation of the county government and the public schools. And whereas the Board of Commissioners of Upson County has determined it is necessary to levy an ad valorem tax on all property in Upson County for the purpose of funding public services provided to the citizens of Upson County in 2022. And whereas all legal advertisements and public hearings required by Georgia Code Section 48-5-32 and 32.1 have been conducted in accordance with said laws. And whereas the Upson County Board of Education has certified to the Board of Commissioners of Upson County that the tax levy it needs to provide funds for the public education of Upson County for the year of 2022. So now therefore be it resolved, the Board of Commissioners of Upson County, Georgia does hereby levy an ad valorem tax on all property within Upson County for the operation of the county government for the year 2022 in the amount of 7.36 mils for general fund, joint projects in the amount of 5.11 mils, and unincorporated taxing district for 1.25 mils. Further, the Board of Commissioners of Upson County also hereby levies an ad valorem tax on all taxable property within Upson County for the year 2022 for the support and maintenance of public education and activities necessary and incident thereto in the amount of 14.01 mils, adopted in an open meeting today, August 23rd, 2022. So,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if I can, I can elaborate on that a little bit. That resolution contains the millage rates that we last presented to you 2 meetings ago, and I'll just quickly go over the changes year to year. So the 2021 countywide rate was 8.28. By adopting this resolution, you're lowering it to 7.36. The previous year's joint projects rate was 3.70. You're increasing that to 5.11. And then lastly, for the unincorporated taxing district, the previous year's millage rate was 1.16, and you would increase it to 1.25. If you total those, last year's total levy was 13.14. This year's total levy would be 13.72, an increase of 0.58. So, as the board is keenly aware, this really began back in November of last year when staff presented a budget and the board approved that budget that included provisions for increases in salaries for public safety officials, which was one of the main drivers for the unusual percentage increase in our budget year to year. That, with the addition of the cost for the ambulance service that actually happened in this fiscal year, which added about another $900,000 to our budget, which was not planned for. So you would have based on our estimates last year, you would have had the potential to see close to the 2.5 mil increase based on our analysis last year. So a lot of the questions I've gotten are, well, how come now we're at 0.58 when we were at 1.5 and potentially 2.5 adding EMS? And sorry, I'm shuffling a lot of paper. I don't look very sophisticated tonight. So the main contributing factors for this being a much lower levy than we anticipated are as follows. So we had a much higher than expected growth in the non-inflationary portion of our digest, which means not someone's home that was one value and now is higher in value next year. It's the home that didn't exist last year that exists this year. So all the additions to our digest are industrial growth, which was, I wouldn't say ultra significant, but there was some. We had a lot. We had commercial growth, and obviously we had residential growth. Properties that were added to the digest, and that was really the main driver of why we're generating a little more revenue, and then thus having to levy much less of an increase to the millage rate. Other factors are that we have higher than anticipated returns in local option sales tax, because the board knows it's the only penny sales tax that we can use to maintain operations for the county. The rest is dedicated for capital. Unfortunately, and potentially fortunately, depending on how you look at it, we've had persistent issues with recruitment and retention. So in a number of our departments, we have a lot of unfilled positions. So staff feels comfortable recommending a lower rate, knowing that between now and the end of this fiscal year, the majority of those positions will probably go unfilled. We also incorporated the use of some of our transportation local option sales tax, or our T-SPLOST, to cover for some of those deficient areas in our road department where our crew is low. So we've gone to a third party to provide some of those services, mainly road patching, which that is T-SPLOST eligible. So that helped relieve some of the burden from what would have been part of that unincorporated tax rate. So again, that's why the estimates are lower. We're able to shift some of that revenue to cover some of that third-party contracting we're used to try to keep up with our road system maintenance. And then lastly, believe it or not, a significant increase in revenue in the rec department. Fees from registration, facility rentals, and concession fees. When I checked with our CFO this morning, we've collected 100% of our budget for 2020. I think it was 133% as we ran it today. So that boost in people participating in our rec programs obviously generates a lot of revenue, coupled with the fact that we're down several positions over there, and we have some hardworking maintenance staff scrambling, trying to keep up with all the additional work. All that combined has made it comfortable, put us in a position so we can comfortably recommend that 0.58 rather than something that would have looked like potentially 2.5 9 months ago.
Okay. Anybody have any questions?
No, I think it's, y'all sharpen the heck out of that pencil.
Yeah, I'd just like to
I
say.
have one question. Oh, sorry. Jason, could you just quickly explain why we're a little more handcuffed to be able to move our funds around in relation to, let's say, like the city?
Sure. I think what Commissioner Watson is referring to, we've got 3 taxing districts: a countywide, an unincorporated levy for joint projects, and an unincorporated levy for other services that we only provide to unincorporated residents. So our boost in local option sales tax goes to help only the countywide levy, which is the main reason why you see that decreasing. So so that, coupled with the increase in the digest, we can't commingle those funds with the special taxing district funds. Therefore, that's why in the Commissioner Watson brings up a good point. Indeed, if you're a city resident, there's 2 of those 3 millage rates we will not levy on a city resident. The city has their own equivalent to that. So technically, it's a decrease in taxes for city residents because the countywide levy that we're levying is below what we call our rollback rate. So unfortunately, we can't, with the funds that we have restricted, we can't move those funds over to fund unincorporated services, and I think that's what Commissioner Watson was referring to. So.
Yeah, I just thought that would be helpful for the public to kind of understand that a little bit more detail. But yeah, I wanted to say thank you to the staff, the finance department, Al, and your team. You did a great job kind of dwindling this down to get us where we're the biggest factor was the EMS, and I know when I was talking to people back last year, everyone was in support of it, so we kind of knew this was a potential.
Mr. Chairman, may I add one more thing to that comment? So that's really EMS in the end is what's driving most of this for unincorporated residents. You know, the city announced that they were using one-time federal dollars to make up that difference on their side of the joint project, specifically for EMS and I think some other things. Our federal dollars were already committed to our joint project that we're doing with the city on the sewer extension for the industrial park and the countywide broadband initiative that we got the multi-million-dollar grant for. The remainder of that federal money was our match for that grant. So our federal dollars were already committed at that point to projects that are already underway. So encumbered essentially. So there was really not an opportunity for us to then pivot to supplement that. And I think that's I'm glad that Commissioner Watson brought that up.
So, you know, what is this? So, you know, I'm sure some people here, you know, what does this mean to you? And one of the things that, you know, in actual dollars, and I appreciate Jason, you and everybody that helped you do this, put together this. So, just, you know, school taxes, we obviously, even though it sounds like in this resolution that we have some measure, but really we're just a conduit. We have no authority to deny their millage request. It's just we're just acknowledging it, I guess, for lack of a better way of saying that. So, you know, so the average home in Upson County, we determined it's based on, I think it was Zillow or something like that, is $177,000. So if you take that and just round it up to $200,000, and this is just the county, this is that 0.58 that we're talking increase. Just rounded up your home. If your home last year was valued at $200,000 and your home this year is $200,000, then what you're looking at is $44 a year for the, you know. So just to put that in some kind of context, you know, obviously you can do the math. If it's $44 for 200,000, 400 would be double that, and then you multiply it by a third again if you were in the 600,000 range. So, to the lady's comments earlier, we absolutely understand the burden of the millage rate on our senior citizens. That's why it was so imperative that we get that homestead exemption through. So hopefully that will pass in November, and next year you'll be able to take full advantage of that, and that will help reduce this tax burden on those folks. I mean, you know, none of us are real estate experts, but I think the writing on the wall is pretty clear that home values are going to. I doubt that they're going to go down. You know, maybe we're wrong, but you know, home values are increasing for this area of the state. But at the end of the day, you know, we hate talking about millage increases. I mean, if you look at the 10-year history, we've adopted the rollback rate. We've declined, even though our property values have gone up. If you were in a home that your property values went up, you saw some inflationary impact on your property tax bill, but the millage rate continued to go down. It wasn't until this past year, though. Our budget year was pretty tough last year with what we had to do for public safety, and everybody was supportive of that. And then we got hit with the ambulance service, which took off. Well, they took over February the 12th. So from February the 12th through today, we're basically paying for a $900,000 ambulance service, which, you know, seems to be a great fit for our community. They're doing an outstanding job. So hopefully everybody's supportive of those things that have gotten us to this point. So at this point, you know, you know, we set the millage rate, you know, a lot of people don't understand, we're paying the bills for the prior year. We're not paying bills for next year. Your property tax bills, you know, go out and you remit those payments in November, you know, and that goes to get us through next year when that 30% of our revenue, as we just were shown, comes from property tax revenue. So we're fortunate that we do have that local option sales tax is helping soften the blow of this, and some of the real growth that we're seeing is helping. You know, we're sharing the burden. You know, as we grow, and our responsibility is to make sure we grow the right way and continue to so anyway, I think I would tell people that if you have any questions about this, please feel free to reach out to us, talk to us. We'll be happy to discuss it, and you know, I look forward to, you know, getting into this next year's budget process. I would encourage everybody to pay attention to the budget process, because I mean that really is when we're setting the budget for next year. And when we set that budget last November, we were talking about $1.5 million increase before we even knew anything about an ambulance service going out on us. So, you know, that's really the best time to provide us your feedback, because that's when we're paying for those services that we all take advantage of, or need, or hopefully don't need. But anyway, I'll leave anything out, gentlemen. I mean, we'll be happy to talk to you. So we have a staff recommendation for the adoption of this resolution for this year's 2022 tax levy. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion for Commissioner Wilder, second by, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Watson. Any further discussion? So I have a motion made and seconded approving this adoption of the resolution authorizing the 2022 tax levy. Jason.
Commissioner Watson,
Yes.
Commissioner Ellington,
Yes.
Commissioner Wilder,
Yes.
Commissioner Jones,
Yes.
Chairman Allen.
Yes. Okay. We'll move along. Next item on the agenda is discussion and possible consideration of a professional service agreement with Parish Construction Group. Jason, you want to?
Mr. Chairman, my apologies. We had, I think we had intended to have this on the consent agenda. This was part of the, although we maybe didn't cover it at great length, but this was on the agenda for the work session. But very quickly, as the board's aware, we've had Parish Construction, who's the contractor that was selected through the RFP process for the Judicial Center project, help us on a number of other small projects, and I thought it prudent that those other small projects should have a general services contract that would govern that. And what you have before you is something similar to what we have with EMC Engineering, which would we would do everything by task order. It's got a term. You can terminate with 45 days prior written notice. There's no agreement to do anything in this at all. It just governs how we will operate. And then section 4 of it, under fees and payment terms, it gives you two options, which is something similar to what we have with EMC. You can do a time and materials arrangement, or you can negotiate a fixed price. And we would do it just like we do with our engineers by task order, although it's just in this it's referred to by amendment. So each one would be an individual task order. And I did attach an example of what that would look like. It's the one that I authorized for the study on the Civic Center roof a few months ago. So I think we got this over to English Law Group a couple weeks ago. I don't think there was any issues with it. So it's about as standard of an agreement as I've seen. So of course we're recommending adoption.
Okay.
I'd agree with that. I mean, the termination clause is, it's standard, but the agreement is standard. The termination clause is actually great because it just lets you with or without cause, both sides can terminate at any point with 45 days written notice. The only thing I would say that we need to be mindful of going forward with agreements, the litigation part of it, they specify that it would be held in Houston County in this agreement. So that's something we need to talk about in the future.
Okay.
And I'll give you my analysis of it. I don't know that it would necessarily matter because the Superior Court judges here would probably recuse themselves. So, I mean, you know, the dynamics of it are probably pretty much the same. But something we can talk about in the future.
Okay. So gentlemen, you have a recommendation from staff to enter into this professional service agreement with Parish Construction. Is there a motion on this recommendation?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second it, but I want a discussion.
That'll be the next thing. So I have a motion and a second. Discussion?
All right, so I've been reading through this and, you know, Paris has done several jobs for us. And if I'm reading it correctly, we don't have to use them on every project. We can use whoever we want. That's okay.
Any other discussion?
Is it possible to have the contract altered to state that, you know, instead of going to Houston County, it could be bigger, even though we understand that process? What's the rush? Can we get this fixed now instead of moving forward?
Or Mr. Chairman, you could, if Commissioner Watson was amenable to amending his motion, you could approve it with that condition.
Commissioner Watson, did you hear that?
Yeah, so just, yeah, I don't mind. I think that would be, it sounds like from our attorney that would be preferred. So I'll amend the motion to include changing the language to Upton County from, I guess, Houston.
All right. Okay. So he's amended his motion. Would you second the amendment? Any more discussion? Hearing no further discussion. Jason?
Commissioner Watson?
Yes.
Commissioner Ellington?
Yes.
Commissioner Wilder?
Yes.
Commissioner Jones?
Yes.
Chairman Allen?
Yes. Okay. County manager comments, report?
Mr. Chairman, I have one other item. I just, some good news. The city of Thomaston has officially assumed ownership and complete operational control of our north side lift station. So, and thanks to Heath for helping make that happen. We've had a couple of on-site meetings. I've not been present for them, and I know the city manager hasn't either. But not only do they now hold title to it, they've signed off on the fact that we've met or exceeded all the conditions in the contract for the transfer to happen, and we've got that documented. We got that from the city late last week, and we promised to work with them this week as backup if they have any questions or concerns, but they're officially operating it now, even to the point where the power account has switched over. So
I know there's some happy people with the water department.
In our water department.
That's what I meant. Well,
And that's
theirs too, I hope. Okay.
So the only thing that lacks is the installation of the affluent meter. That has been ordered, and they have gotten confirmation that it's on its way. The city is obviously responsible for that installation, so they were comfortable going ahead and assuming it, since they're the ones that have to install it. So.
And so that's part of the that comprehensive water sewer agreement. Do we have anything outstanding left to do other than pay the bill when it comes in as that project moves forward?
That project's under construction now, and the city's been great about including us in every phase of the meetings leading up to their letting it. They let it about 6 or 7 weeks ago, and it's already started. So our crew is working closely with the city's crew and with Coggins Construction, who was awarded the contract, and it's going through several unincorporated areas. So they're working closely with our road department and our utilities department to minimize disruption to the areas that are being disturbed.
Okay, anything else?
That's it, Mr. Chairman.
Mr.
Thank you.
James?
I wanted to give you a quick be on the lookout. I was approached via email by a county resident about, and I think Jason's aware of this, about donating a portion of property. Essentially, what would normally be a right-of-way, but because of what's transpired in the, I think it's somewhat of a subdivision, and I'm not sure of the intricacies of how it took place, but he wants to donate some property, and he's gonna be sending a letter probably to you and Jason, so I just wanted you to be on the lookout for it.
Okay.
And we'll address it when
I'm
we-
curious. Skeptical, but curious. Okay. Well, obviously get that to you and to everybody else up here. Mr. Watson?
All I have is thanks to everybody who's accommodated me to join remotely. I appreciate it.
Sir. Mr. Ellington?
I just got one question. This is for the county manager related to the metering device. Is that actually at the facility that we transferred that metering device?
It will be.
And if I'm understanding this right, we have a line coming from the jail going to that. That's the only thing that's going to be
Correct.
monitored. Well, there's another line that dumps into that same facility. So I just was kind of curious how you're going to get everything's dumping into one line. How they going to meter what's ours and what's coming off the north side of? I was just curious about that.
Yeah, I think the determination was that there may be 1 or 2 parcels of unincorporated effluent going into the other line. So I think the agreement was it was just going to be on the north line. I can confirm that though. I'm going by memory on that. It's been a while since we talked about that agreement. So.
Right, and
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
couldn't remember. I'm sure
Yeah.
that came up. I was just curious if you knew because I did know there's some stuff coming from
Which will probably come from
the
incorporated
shopping
areas.
centers.
Yeah.
And I just don't want to get the whole bill
Yeah.
for city sewage.
Oh
I
no,
think it was
yeah.
in that agreement where it was a meter would go.
Yeah.
I thought it was on
I think there's actually a diagram.
the north side of that
Okay.
lift station.
Yeah.
And that's all I got tonight.
Mr. Jones?
Just want to appreciate everybody showing up, everybody watched us on YouTube, and that's it.
Mr. Wild?
I do want to say that we want to commend the financial team and management for working on the obligation with the finances to make sure that the millage rate, we got the millage rate down to 0.58, which is considerably less than what was originally announced some time back. And I also want to say we have to give thanks to the short staff that we have for stepping up and taking up the slack for all the people that have decided to move on. We do need to thank the ones that are left that are doing that. So we do have some shortages in our manpower. That's all I have.
Anybody looking for work? Upton County's hiring.
Good benefits.
CRH. So, gentlemen, I have one piece of business that I didn't take the opportunity to take care of at our last meeting, but I'll take care of it at this point. So I'm going to read this following statement. An issue that arose in April 2020 regarding the suppression and unsuppression of public information available on QPublic a database used by public officials to record and make available information about parcels of property within the county. The need for a written policy became obvious. In July 2020, the Board of Tax Assessors adopted such a policy. During that time, the information regarding Tax Commissioner Andy Chastain's home residence, which had been suppressed from public view, was unsuppressed. It was suppressed again within 2 weeks. That matter could have been handled better. The adopted policy dictates how these matters are handled now and in the future. So that's that, and I'll just close with I appreciate everybody coming out. It's not raining, so again, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us at any time, and thank you. So, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second? We're adjourned. Thank y'all.
Jessica, will you handle that?
Chafing